So we'll start off with number one, because that's where you normally start, isn't it? We'll talk about windscreen covers or insulation covers. There's always a big debate on the forums that I follow about using either internal or external covers. The bottom line is, for us, we would only ever recommend using an external cover. Now, when we had this Transporter T6, I loved my Transporter T6 camper van. We were new to it, and like everyone, we have to learn, even if it's learning the hard way. We bought a set of internal covers. Now, they do help, because of course at the end of the day they do help to insulate you while you're in your van, particularly obviously on these cold winter nights. But at the end of the day, they just really do help to build the condensation on the glass. There are 4 people in this van that are living, breathing, hopefully, and snoring, probably, in the van. So you can imagine when you wake up in the morning, well, the windows are just, they've basically got water running on the inside. So how do you eliminate it, or at least almost eliminate it? Well, it's definitely by using an external cover. Now, we use a tailor-made cover now. There are other manufacturers that make covers, including, and I've got noted here, silver screens and rainbow screens. Rainbow screens are the ones that offer those like funny faces or eyes on the front if you want to be a bit more fancy. And the prices range from sort of the mid £100 to maybe around £300. If you want to avoid what I would call condensation plus, you want an external cover. Now, of course, on our motorhome, we've got Remus blinds, so we could, if we wanted to, just shut the blinds. But the problem is, when we're in the van overnight, all that breathing, well, it gets trapped between the glass and the blind. And when you open the blind in the morning, it looks like it's raining, but on the inside. Now, of course, you could purchase a window vac, but I'd rather use the logic of prevention rather than cure. So we would definitely recommend always using an external windscreen cover. Now, of course, they're not just there to help stop condensation in the van. They insulate the van in winter, and they help keep the van cool in summer. Low bridges and width restrictions. Now, we have a handy sticker. It's on the inside of the sun visor. It's also tucked at the top of the windscreen. So basically, whether it's sunny or not, I can always see it. That dimension sticker is really useful because it reminds me of the height of the vehicle. And remember, when we're talking the height, it's not just the height specified by the manufacturer. You've got to allow for anything that you've had fitted on top. It's just you need to allow for those because that won't be covered in the manufacturer's height numbers that they quote. And of course, as I say, the width is also needed. Having that sticker means if you're suddenly approaching that bridge on the road that you've never driven down before, because, well, you're going away on holiday and you've just never driven down it before, it just gives you that moment to just glance and go, I'll be fine. Now, we used to put a link to the stickers that we use, but unfortunately that company is no longer doing them. But they are easy to find on eBay if you just search for van size or van measurement stickers, decals, whatever. You'll be able to find them. You could plan a long trip with a mixture of on-grid and off-grid. Why would you do that? Well, of course, it gives you the benefits of a cheaper holiday because, of course, the off-grid ones tend to be cheaper than fully fledged campsites, of course. But if, as an example, it's not a hard and fast rule, but if, for example, you were going, say, 6 or 7 different places, you could balance your trip out with one off-grid and then the next one being a fully kitted up, amenitied campsite. The beauty of that, of course, is if you do that, it basically means that whatever you're doing while off-grid, when you get to the next campsite, you know that you can top up the fresh water, you can sort out the toilet cassette, and you can plug into that lovely electric that's going to recharge, boost up your leisure battery or batteries. Now, some sites will allow you to do things like top up the fresh water and empty your toilet cassette for a fee, but of course, it's probably best to plan ahead for those just to make sure. Rattles always comes up on the forums, this one. Everyone. Even a van that's not a camper van or motorhome will make a lot more noise, if only because there's a lot more space for that noise to travel around in. If you're travelling in your camper van or motorhome, we basically got a house behind you, haven't you? And one of the worst culprits for rattling, of course, is plates, cutlery, and anything to do with the oven. How can you stop these? Well, tea towels are your best friend when it comes to rattles in the van, because at the end of the day, if you've got quite a few tea towels, why not? Because they're useful as tea towels. They can also be used to wrap around things like utensils or separate plates, etc. It'll stop all that rattling, but they still have their secondary use, or should I say their main use, when you pull up at camp. You could, of course, also buy something specifically to quieten certain things down. For instance, these, which I think are meant to be plate protectors or whatever. Now, those items and many items, just a quick note, are available in our Amazon storefront shop. Now, our Amazon storefront shop, a link to which is always below all of our videos, everyone, is just a collection of stuff that we have in our van that we think would be useful. Doesn't mean, of course, that you should buy everything from our Amazon storefront shop. Far from it. But if you do purchase anything using the link, we do get a small commission, and that small commission we are very grateful for. Do you keep the van warm in winter if you're not using it? So effectively a winter layup. We would never put any heating on in this van, even if it was parked outside our house, even if it was plugged into the electric. But why? Well, the van doesn't care if it's cold. We all know what it's like. Van's been sitting outside. Maybe we've had some snow on the ground. It's freezing cold. You've opened the hab door and you just feel that instant chill in the van. You feel it because you're living and breathing. The van doesn't care. There is nothing in this van that cares about being too cold, assuming, of course, that you've drained down your water tank and left your taps and the shower open. You don't want them to freeze over. The main thing to remember, particularly in a modern van, if you take this motorhome for example, there are loads of ventilation spots in this van. Loads. You won't see most of them, but I can assure you they're there. Those ventilation areas in the van are there to ventilate the van. Now, of course, they're there to cope with, in our case, 4 people living and breathing in the van, as we said earlier in the video. But they're basically there to allow the van to breathe. You don't need to be heating up the van. But then people will say, well, what about having a dehumidifier in the van? Or maybe moisture traps, because maybe they've put moisture traps in their van and they've trapped a lot of moisture. Well, I'm going to read verbatim a little section from the Camping and Caravan Club, because I agree with this statement, and it basically says, in the long term, the motorhome's ventilation will mean you are simply trying to dehumidify the air surrounding the tourer. I agree. This is the problem. You can put your moisture traps down, you can put your dehumidifier in, but you're also trying to suck in from all that ventilation the moisture. It's not a problem. The most important thing I would say with any motorhome and camper van is make sure that you take the furnishings. So for instance, this cushion that I'm sitting against now and the base of the cushion away from the side walls of the van. Nothing at the sides, nothing at the sides. And for the avoidance of doubt, not touching the panel at the side. Particularly for vans like ours with an elevating bed, drop the elevating bed down halfway. We also put the ladder that you use to climb onto that elevating bed underneath the mattress to allow a gap underneath the mattress. Like that. Air. No hair. Why do we say take away the furnishings and anything from the sides of the van? Well, and the roof of the van, of course. Well, that's because they're going to be the real cold spots, and moisture and or condensation could become a problem because it will get trapped between that and the panel of the van. Whereas if you just place the cushions somewhere in the middle of the van, we tend to just loosely place them around and or on top of the table that I'm leaning on now. It aids the airflow, and airflow is basically all you need in a van. So we would not heat it, we would not dehumidify it.